unite. It's time to war, to fight the fight against the puppet masters pulling strings. We'll strip away the power, hear our piercing screams. Yeah, we won't be silenced anymore. Break free from the chains that they adore. Stand tall, Unrig in the game we rise. We'll bring reality from their lies. Unrig the game, unleash the fury.
Greetings and welcome to Unrig the Game. How are you guys doing this evening? Hope you guys are all doing and living well. Thank you to all of the Winner Circle reoccurring subscribers on YouTube. Scrolling at the bottom of the screen, thank you guys for keeping the channel supported. And you get that free or prepaid super chat once a month. It's always there. And also thank you to Wolfram and Shelly for subscribing on Rumble. I am broadcasting on Rumble, X, and YouTube. And this is the kickoff show. Coming up next, Chapter 10, Wokeness is Like a Religion. Chapter 10 of Woke Inc. by Vivek Ramaswamy. And of course, we do this exclusively on Rumble and X. And this is the kickoff show here on YouTube, where we talk for a little while and then we make the jump off of YouTube exclusively onto those platforms. And I appreciate each and every one of you being here. Yes, we're up to chapter 10 now of Woke Inc. Amazing. We're just cutting through. This is our third book, by the way. If you're enjoying this series, thank you so much for being a part of it. The whole idea behind Unrig the Game is to get into the nitty-gritty of major issues and figure out how they work so that we can think about how to create lasting root cause solutions for them. And like the authors of the book are doing as well, authors of the books. And by the way, the very first book we did was Control Oligarchs by Seamus Bruner, who is now following me on X. How about that? Isn't that cool? Yeah, he actually had sent me a post or something like that once, and I replied to it and let him know that we covered his book and would love to have him on sometime. And he decided he would follow the channel as a result. And that'd be awesome to have Seamus on at some point in the future. It would be great to have all the authors on just to talk about their books and talk about themselves and get to meet the crowd who's actually read their book. Let's say hello to the crowd. Speaking of the crowd, Wolfram, thank you for dropping the links. Remember to listen to the wolf. He wipes his paws, loops in and howls, and that's how you know he's here. There's Cool Gamer 2. Cool Gamer 2, they're the same. How you doing, Cool Gamer? Good to see you. There's Shelly. Shelly says hello to everybody. And there's Outpost Nerd. And we are off and running. So happy you guys are here this evening. Here and everybody over on X that's listening. They say piling in over there, piling in over on the Rumble side. Thank you guys. Make sure you hit the thumbs up and share. Help people know that what we're doing here. This is Monday nights. We do audiobook read-alongs, and we're all, like I said, our third book. We did Control Oligarchs, we did The Great Awakening, and now we're on Woke Inc. And then we'll have more after Woke Inc. is done. We have some other books in the ready to go. So we'll decide what our next book is going to be. But we got a ways to go on this one, so that's what we're going to do. I want to kind of get going early tonight with the pre-show here, and I got some things, a couple of things that we're going to look at before we hop on over to Rumble and exclusively and start reading. And then at the end, we're going to check in on night one of the DNC outside, because inside is just a bunch of communist propaganda, Marxist propaganda, bullshit, false premises, lies, deceptions. That's what they do on the inside. So we already know that. We don't need to hear any of their bullshit. But what we're going to look on the outside is to see how the protests are going on the outside. Have they burned the place down yet or not? So far, nothing too much to report. They tore down one fence. I think that's where we're at. Maybe they're working on the second one. And from what I'm seeing, it's not a big turnout. not a big turnout right now going on in the DNC. They seem to be having a turnout issue. Of course, they're just sitting there, just running through everybody, anyways. I think I saw a little bit of that where they were talking about rules. They did it like they used to do the rules thing. They don't do it at the RNC anymore. But they're doing it at the DNC where they could approve rules, and basically people don't even they say the rule and they just have everybody say yay, and then they just pass the rule. Nobody knows what the hell's going on there. So they're just it's just a dog and pony show, really. All right, so we watched Beneath Sheep's Clothing last night on Old School Watch Party Sundays. And for those of you who saw it, congratulations. You saw a great documentary. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, I hope that you will see it. You can watch it with us on Old School Watch Party Sundays on Rumble, on X. They're in both places. You can watch that. It's about the 1 hour mark was when we start watching the documentary, if you just want to skip to that. And I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. It's a great documentary. It combines a lot of the things that we've covered on the channel already, but also puts them into a very precise kind of delivery. And I hope you guys will check it out. It's definitely will get your mind rolling on what's going on around this world and what we're really fighting here. Behind the Marxist push, right behind these ideas are people acting in the name of the idea, with a lot of times not even realizing they're doing it. The cutoff between useful idiots as victims and dangerous enemies, and those who drive it for purely authoritarian reasons. It's all down to the psychology and the mind control those people are under, right? But it's one thing is clear: it does represent evil in our world. There's nothing good going on about that whatsoever. So we know that we're fighting evil, and the evil incarnate is the Marxist idea at this point in our world, probably forever. It's just changed names, right? And we are the resistance. We are the ones that are lucky enough to be outside of it and free. But like I was talking with Shelley about earlier, is we have to realize that it's all psychology. It's all a psychological operation against us. It's all about mind control. That's why I take the approach I take. It is about mind control. So I figured I could point out it's communism, point out it's Marxism, point out all these players that are behind this poisonous, toxic idea called Marxism. But the truth is that Marxism can't prosper if it isn't able to control minds and divide people with that mind control and silo them into these false narratives. So I've always taken the approach is teach people how mind control works, get them to admit and understand that it does exist. It is a part of the condition we have to deal with here in the third dimension. And we have to prepare ourselves for that assault, or we will fall victim to it. And so my approach has always been to go to the root cause issues, mind control, into corruption, into abuse, these things that are at the fundamental levels that enable this evil idea to prosper. And this is the way to cut it off for good, at least seriously diminish this incarnation of it to the point where it's on the low end of the power rankings, right? But right now it's able to manufacture the consent of so many because it has control of so many different institutions that are all directed towards the psychological attack that's going on. And that's how they do it. And of course they do it by attacking the youngest generation, the most malleable, amongst us in society today, the youngest generation, to craft their worldview from the beginning and then co-opt them and take them over, turn them against all things that are good and wholesome, that will protect them, that will keep them in the light. That way they have plenty of corrupt individuals to work with in the future. They're literally planning out their attacks generationally. That's why I'm always referring to the generational warfare that's going on. And to kind of walk us into this, Mark Dice put out this great little piece today. Well, actually, when did he put it out? 12 hours ago. That kind of recaps all that in another way. So I wanted to play that first. It's a quick little piece. We'll do it on 2.5. Yes. Okay, cool. And then we're going to go into Vivek responding to Kamala's economic strategy. So that's a good one too. That's going to be our pre-show, our kickoff show, that is. And then after that, we're going to hop over to Rumble and X exclusively and read chapter 10 of Woke Inc. wokeness is like a religion. And hey, what a great chapter to read after last night too. Literally in the documentary Beneath Sheep's Clothing, they were calling out wokeness as a Marxist tool, and which it is. It's just an evolution of it. It's an evolution of political correctness. It's an evolution of metrosexuality, all kinds of things like that. It's just you can trace its evolution, and that it's coming to a fever pitch because they are getting to the point where they're ready to really pull the trigger on a collapsing the society. So we have to be and now more than ever be vigilant and be in the fight, right? It's no time to sit on the sideline and watch. And that everybody here, if you're here, you're part of the solution. You are in the fight. Congrats and welcome, my friends. We will win this. We will win our reality back from those who have stolen it and trying to turn it into a toxic, evil dystopia, which will ensure the destruction of our heritage, our culture, our country, and our future. So let's hop on into it. And thank you guys for being here. Here we go. There we go. Boom. And we are off.
A famous rant about the power of television to control our culture and frame political issues by the character Howard Beale in the 1976 film Network still rings true today, almost 50 years later, when he shouted, "This tube can make or break presidents, popes, prime ministers. This tube is the most awesome force in the whole godless world." And
I'm just thinking, as we're watching this, I should just do a dystopian kind of like dual night on old school watch party Sundays, where we do dystopian movies up front and then do a comedy at the end on double movie night, maybe. And we'll just do that for a while. So that way, I hate to leave everybody with a downer of a movie. I always want to like lift people up at the end of that show. So I have to figure out a way to do that the right way. And Network is one of those movies I want to show. 1984 is one of those movies I want to show. And I think there's even a Brave New World out there too. I mean, we should watch all the dystopian future movies that are well known. But this Network is more like an unveiling kind of movie where it talks about the power of mind control through the media.
woe to us if it ever falls into the hands of the wrong people. Unfortunately, it did fall into the hands of the wrong people, the wrong corporations and Operation Mockingbird assets, and they're using the same propaganda techniques perfected almost 100 years ago now by Edward Bernays to wage a cultural Marxist war on Western civilization. Edward Bernays is the man credited as the father of public relations and was a master of social engineering, propaganda, and shaping public opinion. He was also the nephew of the famous psychologist Sigmund Freud, which may help explain how he became interested in psychology. And in 1928, he published a book titled Propaganda that described his methods for shaping public opinion and people's attitudes and behaviors through the use of mass media, where he openly admitted, quote, "Those who manipulate the unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds molded, our taste formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. In almost every act of our lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, in our social conduct or ethical thinking, we are dominated by the relatively small number of persons who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires that control the public mind, who harness old social forces and contrive new ways to bind and guide the world."
All right, leave that up there for a minute. This is what I'm talking about here. Earlier, in that, this is the occulted knowledge everybody's looking for. Hello, Daisy girl, how you doing? People talk about occulted knowledge, and they want to look at Freemasonry, and they want to look at all this stuff that does not apply and it is not part of it. But this is the they're off the mark, right? So they're ineffective in this point. And most people are what they say is gonna fall on deaf ears. But this is the real occulted knowledge here. It's the understanding of how the human mind works and what mechanisms can control the mind, right? These DNC people, these people that are out there, these pro-Palestine useful idiots that are marching down the street literally with a sign. I talked about it the other night, literally with a sign that says feminist and LGBTQ for pro-Palestine. I mean, these are the two things that Palestine people do not want, and that here they are in America. A bunch of Americans have nothing to do with that conflict, that are just out there in the middle of the street. I talked about what is going through their minds, right? Well, what's going through their mind is propaganda. They've been manipulated and becoming useful idiots, and they don't even realize it. And there they are on a parade, basically a mind control parade going down the street, right? And this is how it happened to them, right? This is what they're talking about right here in this statement.
This is basically what George Orwell said in his classic novel 1984, where he wrote that all the beliefs, habits, tastes, emotions, mental attitudes that characterize the time were designed to sustain the mystique of the party and prevent the true nature of present-day society from being perceived. Bernays is basically the guy who got women to smoke cigarettes, because in 1929, he was hired by the American Tobacco Company to help them promote smoking. And he did this by hiring a group of models to light up cigarettes while marching in the Easter Sunday parade in New York City in order to break the taboo of women smoking in public. And then he sent out a press release saying they lit up torches of freedom to support women's rights. The following day, the New York Times...
I mean, real quick, can we stop and appreciate the thought that went into that? You know, not that it's a good thought, but the fact that it was very clever to use the Statue of Liberty, who's a female, and the Torch of Liberty to represent the cigarette to get women to start smoking. It was, I mean, is there anything more psychological going on in that framing, right? This is how far down the road he was in understanding how to subvert the human mind.
Times ran an article with the headline, "Group of Girls Puff Cigarettes as Gesture of Freedom." He really was an evil genius. Of course, Operation Mockingbird has a lot to do with the way the mainstream media in America functions today, and the fact that most people still aren't familiar with it speaks volumes about their effectiveness. It's fairly well known that Ms. Magazine, started by the feminist activist Gloria Steinem in the early 1970s, was funded through Operation Mockingbird in order to promote the feminist revolution with the goal of breaking down the family and traditional gender roles. And
that sounds just like what we were hearing last. Oops, that's what we were hearing last night. Is everything okay? I bumped my mic. Check. Okay. What we were hearing last night, right? Exactly what they were talking about here, and they even mentioned Operation Mockingbird as well. But isn't that interesting there that this grand Gloria Steinem feminist rag that was put out there to manipulate and subvert the minds of females, to start the sex battle of the sexes, the war of the divide and conquer strategy against the nuclear family, against femininity in general, and against the natural roles of men and women in this world, the balance that we create for each other. That it was all nice and sponsored by a subversive psychological warfare, coming from the idea of the Marxist idea driven, the idea of Marxism driven through individuals that are acting on behalf of it. And like I said, a lot of times people don't even realize they're acting as on behalf of the idea of Marxism, because it's just so ingrained in society now. It's kind of like the people who are executing the Alinsky rules for radicals, because it's so baked into their cultural strategy against people that they don't realize that it's Alinsky's rules for radicals they're actually portraying. They're actually following those rules. A lot of people don't even need the education anymore. It's so baked into their methodologies and strategies.
And the CIA has also admitted to funding musicians in Cuba, where they recruited popular Cuban hip-hop artists and rappers and then used them to encourage their fans to rise up against the communist president, Raul Castro.
So music, huh? Music can control minds. It can become religious to people. Yeah, like I said, when you boil it down to what music is, all we're doing is selling sound. We're just selling sound. But the bottom line is it's you're able to control people's emotions through music, and you're able to craft their ideas. I started, when I listened to this part, it made me think about like the kind of music I grew up with, right? But I remember my music being very anti-war, right? And anti-tyranny in a sense. If you look back at bands like, Metallica and Justice for All, that wasn't a pro-war, that was an anti-war album. It's about the horrors of war. It was about it was about that. It was about pushing back against war. It's same with like a lot of some of the other bands, metal bands I used to listen to way back in the day. They kind of like were the evolution of the anti-war kind of sentiment. Even Iron Maiden was talking about like, you know, these old time kind of wars. They had an anti kind of war stance, and so that's you know, anti-establishment, anti kind of war stance. That's what I remember, and I'm sure it had a great influence on me.
Declassified documents show that the agency used a front group called Creative Associates International and spent millions of dollars working to undermine Cuba's communist government through the use of musicians. That is the power of propaganda. If we look back,
yeah, which I mean, I get it. I don't know who. I guess I don't know if they were trying to replace them with maybe another authoritarian, or maybe they're actually a constitutional republic. I'm not sure what that that effort was for. Evidently, it didn't work, but I guess it's like but you know, that's one way to kind of like, they're trying to fight fire with fire at that point.
back over 200 years ago and simply read the confiscated writings of Adam Weishaupt and the other original members of a certain infamous organization you're not supposed to talk about, we can even see that back then they understood the power of controlling information. One excerpt from these authentic, confirmed writings explains, quote, "By establishing reading societies and subscription libraries and taking these under our direction and supplying them through our labors, we may turn the public mind which way we will, or which..."
Now take that and just roll it into Hollywood, because that's where that or you know, that's where the remnants or the idea, leftover idea of that organization exists today. You know, not that they're some kind of powerful group; they're just kind of like a entertainment cult now.
Whichever way that they wanted. In like manner,
and I don't think they're even serious about it. I mean, I think it's just more of they adopted the name and the lore and the imagery of this old group, and they're just kind of co-opting it.
We must obtain influence in the military academies,
that's my take on it.
The printing houses, bookseller shops, chapters, and in short, all offices which have any effect in forming or managing or directing the mind of man. You can read more about the original writings of the, you know what, secret society in my book, Inside the, you know what, Evidence, Objectives, and Methods of Operation, which you should order in paperback from Amazon.com.
Mark does write great books. He does. He's actually a really good writer. I've got a few of his books, and it's different from the videos. His writings is really good, and it's meticulous.
After finishing this video, link in the description below. Neil Postman, who was a famous media analyst in the 1980s, whose classic book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, Public Discourse in the Age of Show Business, explains that television as a medium compared to books and newspapers is extremely limited in its ability to transmit quality information because it's packaged into small sound bites and brief segments that are only 2 or 3 minutes long, which can't even begin to convey the details, historical context, or complex ideas needed to deliver complete and quality messages to the audience. Decades ago, he concluded that our mass media-infused future may be a mix between an Orwellian nightmare and a Huxleyan circus, saying, "In an age of advanced technology, spiritual devastation is more likely to come from an enemy with a smiling face than one whose countenance exudes suspicion and hate." In the Huxleyan prophecy, Big Brother does not watch us by his choice, we watch him by ours. There's no need for wardens or gates or ministries of truth when a population becomes distracted by trivia, when cultural life is defined as a perpetual round of entertainments, when serious public conversation becomes a form of baby talk, when, in short, a people become an audience and their public business a vaudeville act, then a nation finds itself at risk. Cultural death is a clear possibility. And
that's what we're, again, the documentary last night was going over as well, was talking about that exact point, which that was very well put. You know, how population becoming distracted, advanced technologies, spiritual devastation. These are all things that were covered in that. And also what I've said is, like, you know, there's no need for that many string pullers when everything's just kind of perpetuating itself.
1960s, a famous study was conducted to see how children mimic violent behavior they see others engaging in, known as the Bobo doll experiment, which involved leaving a group of children in a room with a Bobo doll, an inflatable punching bag, basically, that stands on the ground and is weighted by the bottom so that when you hit it, it tips over and then rises back up again.
Yeah, we see these kind of things, these experiments on kids, these psychological experiments they did, and we wonder, well, how do they know so much? They've been doing this stuff forever. Right? We got to get a glimpse of it here, right? How many people know about this experiment? Maybe many of you are hearing about it for the first time. We've talked about other experiments. He's going to go over a couple more that we know of. But again, they've been studying children and child psychiatry for a long time, and psychology for a long time. And that's how they understand how better to manipulate the youngest generations, right? They understand what works on kids. They understand what works on teenagers, adults, and so on. They've put generations of work into this already. So, coming at it, going with we're starting on an even playing field. We're not. They're way ahead of us, like they were saying in the documentary again last night. That we're just coming into an understanding of this. Now we can catch up really fast thanks to people that have known about it for a while, given the education out like I am and others. We can catch up fast once we get people into the awareness category, awareness, research, consideration, decision. We need to get them down that track and not into denial and anger, right? To resist the changing and upgrading and optimizing their belief systems. Optimizing, changing, and upgrading your belief systems is a good thing. And to stay stagnated is to put yourself at risk for mind control itself, if not by someone else, by your own doings, right? That's why it's important to always be open-minded and approach the world in open-minded. Even if you have your beliefs, be open-minded about those beliefs. And that's one way you can protect yourself from mind control.
And the researchers found that even though the Bobo doll was in the room with the children, along with a bunch of other toys, they mostly ignored it until a research participant came in the room and started hitting it. And then, monkey see, monkey do, the kids started mimicking the behavior and punching the doll.
So when the blue-haired weirdo teacher comes walking in the room and puts a pride flag on the fucking wall, right? And the kids weren't aware of that before. They become aware of it now. Now she's going to diss out the research to them and get them to buy in to what she's selling, right? And then once they have bought in and she has them, or they have them, or whatever it is has them, right? They can then begin to pull them away from the family, pull them away from morality, pull them into, in other words, groom them into what they want them to be.
It's a classic experiment in social learning theory and observational learning. And just like the children mimicked the behavior they saw there, they mimic the behaviors they see in the media. Another shocking phenomenon regarding people being influenced to say or believe things which clearly aren't true can be found in the Ash conformity experiments in the 1950s conducted by psychologist Solon Ash, which showed that most people abandon their own beliefs and opinions and conform to those of the majority group so that they don't feel ostracized. One of the experiments involved groups of people who were all said to be participants in the experiment, but all except one were actually actors and in on it. And then the group was shown a card with a line on it, and then another card with 3 lines on it, each of them labeled A, B, and C, and they were all different lengths, and then asked which line was the same length as the line on the first card. And all the actors were told before the experiment to pick a line that wasn't the same length. And what the experiment found was almost always the one lone person not in the know, the actual test subject, would agree with them. The experiments showed that the subjects would just go along with the group, even doubting their own perceptions when everyone else was claiming.
Wolfram, that would work. That literally would work. And that's probably going to be the way it goes. Not maybe in that exact example, but yeah, we're going to have to reintroduce the idea that people that are suffering from pride disorder, right, these are people that have mental deficiencies. What has happened is that we've taken people with mental deficiencies and said that, oh, they're normal because we care about hurting their feelings. Well, they should already know they're mentally deficient, right? It's just They're dealing with that the same way people that have grown up, they believe in they have ADD or ADHD or some other disorder that they labeled you with early as a child, right? Has learned to live with it, learn to go on with it, realizing that they have challenges to overcome, but not trying to make everybody change because of their challenges. Gender dysphoria is a mental disorder. It is. There's nothing normal about it. It's not a righteous path by any means. And I've gotten away from calling it what it is, mental disorder.
Aiming that a different line was the same length in order to avoid feeling like the odd man out. They would just simply agree with everyone else. In leading the moronic masses like marionettes are the high priests of Hollywood whose puppet masters employ.
Oops, hold on. I hit the wrong button. My bad. And we're back here. Let me just roll it back for a second. My bad.
The high priests of Hollywood whose puppet masters employ the halo effect, which is the psychological phenomenon where someone's impression of another's ability or value is influenced by their own.
I mean, look, they put them on the stage, they give them awards, right? They say this is the way to be. This is what will get you glory and fame. Look at these people. They're all plastic and fake.
Overall thoughts and feelings.
That they're glorifying this kind of outlandishness
about that person. So when someone has a favorable view of a celebrity because they enjoy their films or music or whatever, most people, the dumbed down masses, literally see everything that they say or do in a favorable light and think that they're an
the power of celebrity
expert, or that they're espousing some profound wisdom whenever they express their opinion on something. Me, on the other end, I'm just a guy in my kitchen.
Yeah, and that's celebrity mind control, right? They've won your heart, and now they go after your minds, right? You're endeared to them because of the characters they play and the way they've made you feel in their theatrics, right? And now they're in a perfect position to influence people that are subjectable.
On a laptop. Technically, I guess I'm a media analyst with a bachelor's degree in communication and a passion for the truth. So if you like watching my monologues like this, then you'll really love reading my books. So Order Hollywood Propaganda, How TV, Movies, and Music Shape Our Culture.
I got that one too. That's a good one.
Or The True Story of Fake News in paperback on Amazon.com, or download the ebook from any of the major ebook stores.
My books, if you like to read on your own, whatever ones I could find, maybe we'll do one of his books in the future. He does drill down a lot and just give a lot of background on things. So we have to figure out which one we want to do. His newest one isn't out on it says Kindle download books. But it's not out on Audible. Like it doesn't come on Audible. So I have to find a new supplier for audiobooks to watch some of his books. So to listen to some of his books. But they're really good. So the second part I want to jump right into that. So I hope you guys enjoyed that presentation, right? Mark does good work. You're not 100% on everything, but I'd love to have a conversation with him and kind of like work out what it is where, maybe we don't agree on, or maybe like what it is he means by certain things. I really feel like we agree on most things, and maybe it's just presentation, and maybe he's just some gaps he can fill in for me as well. We could talk about all kinds of stuff, but I know he doesn't do a lot of interviews. He's really busy doing his channel and writing books, really. And I don't blame him. He's been doing it a long time. However, that would be an interview I'd love to have on the bucket list there, amongst others. Mark Dice would be a great interview. I'd love to actually get a chance to talk to him one day. All right, here's the next video to get us started off here on the kickoff show. This is Vivek Ramaswamy. We're gonna bring in Rattlesnake. Rattlesnake TV, right? This guy's cool. Another guy, him and Mark both, I would tend to agree with a lot. And anyways, if you haven't seen this yet, make sure I got it on sped up. Yes. We're going to listen to Vivek destroy Kamala's economic strategy. And listen to this. If you haven't heard this yet, you're going to get a good kick out of this.
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we're going to be watching some predictions and reactions to Kamala Harris's recent speech where she laid out her economic plans, which largely mirror what Joe Biden was doing. Here's Kamala explaining what 4 years of Joe Biden has done to the American economy.
Everyday prices are too high. It feels so hard to just be able to get ahead. The bills add up. Food, rent, gas, back to school clothes, prescription medication. The
You did that. You did that.
cost of food. A loaf of bread cost 50% more. Ground beef is up almost 50%. There's a serious housing shortage. The price of housing has gone up. It's too difficult to build, and it's driving prices up. It is out of reach. The size of down payments have gone up as well. Costs are still too high. There's not much left at the end of the month, and prices are still too high.
Well said. Now, Vivek Ramaswamy has been highlighting this for a while now and doing what Republicans in most cases are failing to do, which is going on the news and big platforms and laying out and obliterating Kamala Harris's economic record and strategy, and also detailing why it will be an absolute disaster. He's one of the only people who hasn't been pulled away and who has been laser focused on this very important issue. So here's a few clips of him speaking on this over the past few days, which has aged very well.
I heard Kamala Harris say to a reporter over the weekend, my economic policy is coming out this week. What do you anticipate it'll look like?
Look, I anticipate it's going to look like something completely the opposite of what her record actually is. We don't need to wait for it, though, Kaylee. We already know what her economic policies are. She favors a tax on unrealized capital gains. That is a formula for a stock market crash and a second Great Depression. And just for people at home to know what that means if you're a farmer and you own a farm or you own a small business, in many cases, you will have to pay taxes that you do not have the cash to pay because it's an unrealized capital gain. That's economic catastrophe. Another economic policy saying she would get rid of the filibuster to ram through the Green New Deal, which would replace air travel with train travel, which would establish a single-payer healthcare system. She also favored nationalizing healthcare in a bill co-sponsored by Bernie Sanders, something I think Republicans have not gone after her enough for. So, they talk a lot about weird, Kaylee. You know what I think is weird? I think abolishing air travel is weird. I think abolishing private health insurance is weird. And I think that a lot of these positions, the Green New Deal to abolishing the coal industry, are downright weird, not because it's an attack on other Americans, but because those are policies that hurt all Americans. So that's
Kayla was the best. She was the best press secretary.
where I come out. And I do think we have not actually gone after her heavily enough on her policy record. And I think that's how we're going to win this.
Quick interruption, guys. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoy this information and subscribe to the channel.
Yep. Make sure you like it and
subscribe. Especially in the tech sector, you have people sitting on large, long-standing embedded capital gains. And so for people to understand what this means, it means you have to pay taxes on sales that you have not yet made. And even forget the stock market and think about even everyday Americans across this country. That means that if you're a farmer or if you're a small business owner, you will owe taxes with cash you literally do not have in your pocket to pay those taxes. That is a formula for a second Great Depression. And it is something that's been in the bloodstream of Democratic policy for a long time. Go back to Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders' plans of a wealth tax, even in the 2020 primary. I think this idea is here to stay for the Democrats. That's a big one. I think Tim Walz's selection as vice president says a lot. That's the first real presidential style decision we've seen Kamala Harris have to make. She went with somebody who at the state level has favored increasing taxes on capital gains. In that case, it was unrealized, but they have talked about unrealized gains and taxing them. And I do worry about that, what that means, not just for the stock market, but for everyday Americans.
The stock market, if there's not 60 votes for that in the Senate, the stock market doesn't have to price it.
Yeah, 60 votes, or if you agree. I respectfully disagree with one aspect of that, because Kamala Harris has been the chief proponent of ending the filibuster to ram through her policy objectives. Yeah. And so if she's the president of the United States, and in my view, God forbid, a Democratic Senate to aid her, that could be 51 votes. And could you get to 51 votes on a major change in tax policy like that? I think the answer is absolutely yes. I think that's conceivable. And so for a lot of business leaders across the country, one of the questions they might want to ask is, which is going to be the administration that's more friendly to business? Well, we don't know where she stands on tariffs. We don't know where she stands on a lot of other questions. But on tax policy alone, the idea of not just raising tax rates, but raising tax rates and applying taxes on unrealized income, that is a catastrophe of epic proportion.
So Kamala Harris has now stated her plan to tackle the cost of living crisis in the United States.
Through a decree, from the 1st of November, there will come into effect a maximum price by which goods can be sold to the public.
Nintendo.
What we call the installation of fair price for the people of all products. And from 1st of November.
Sorry, wrong clip. That was Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, announcing his plan for price controls. Here's Kamala.
And I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food.
Donald Trump.
Right, she said price gauging, right? This is how she's getting, I think she's going to get out of it. Instead of gouging, it's gauging. Oh, we just gauging. No. You just say things weird.
Is calling this the Maduro plan?
She's running on the Maduro plan. We call it
the Maduro plan. Look at it. Look at it. He pulls out all these products, and I didn't see this. I didn't see this press conference right here with the products sitting there.
Maduro plan, like something straight out of Venezuela or the Soviet Union. This announcement is an admission that her economic policies have totally failed and caused really a catastrophe for our country, and beyond that, a catastrophe in the world.
Even the Washington Post is calling out Kamala on this plan. They say, when your opponent calls you a communist, maybe don't propose price controls. Vivek Ramaswamy tweeted, Kamala's plan to empower the FTC to go after vaguely defined price gouging is idiotic. And if I'm totally honest, I really hope that this will also remind our side that expanding the power of three-letter agencies like the FTC is an awful idea, no matter which party proposes it. And whilst you might think it's not a bad idea because prices have gone up a lot, and when it comes to monopolies, price gouging can be a problem. The reality is that it will only make the problem worse because you're not fixing or addressing the underlying problem of inflation that causes the price increase in the first place. Here's a great video of American entrepreneur David Freiberg completely flaming this policy with receipts.
Freiberg, what's your take on this reported by the Washington Post and I think confirmed by Politico move by Kamala Harris?
Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking.
Yes, yeah.
I unequivocally hate socialism. Socialism destroys innovation, destroys productivity, and destroys individual liberties. Agriculture and food markets have insanely competitive dynamics because there are commodity markets, there are tons of competitors. There is no monopoly in making food, there is no monopoly in making CPG products, there is no monopoly in retail, there is no monopoly in grocery stores. It is a small margin, highly competitive, highly fragmented free market.
How's it going?
And the free market works in that everyone is always competing with each other, creating new productivity improvements, and as a result, over time, prices come down, except when the government intervenes and gets involved. So I would argue that the real cause of price inflation in food is not the supposed price gouging by corporate players in the ag and food industry, all of whom are deeply competitive with one another, but rather is the result of the inflation associated with government spending and stimulus coming out of COVID. Nick, Exhibit 1, the Fed balance sheet. From COVID to today, the Fed balance sheet grew from $4.2 trillion to $7.2 trillion, a growth of 70%. The Federal Reserve went out and they bought assets and they issued debt to banks and introduced liquidity into the system. If you go to the next slide, as a result, the M2 money supply increased from 15 trillion to 21 trillion since COVID, a 40% increase. Okay, so now there is more money in the system, so the cost of everything should go up, which is exactly what we've seen. We can walk through a couple of the other commodity price charts from the St. Louis Fed. Here is the price of electricity. As an example, the price of electricity has gone up a little bit less than the M2 money supply. But the truth is, when you start to actually look at ag commodity prices over time, what's happened is there was certainly a boost coming from COVID, but the competition and the challenges in overproduction in the ag markets has started to hit and started to bring prices back down. So here's the price of strawberries. Strawberries today are selling for less than they were pre-COVID. Potatoes are now back to where they were pre-COVID. Now, let me give you some statistics on some of the supposed price gouging companies in the industry. Kraft Heinz stock pre-COVID was $29 a share. Today, Kraft Heinz stock is $34 a share. 2019 revenue of $25 billion, 2023 revenue of $26 billion. EBITDA in 2019 of $6.1 billion, EBITDA in 2023 of $6.3 billion. There's not a lot of profit gouging. In fact, Kraft Heinz has not been able to keep up with the inflation. Starbucks, which we just talked about, their stock was at $90 pre-COVID and today $93. 2019 revenue of $26 billion, operating income of $4.1 billion, 2023 revenue of $36 billion, but operating income only $5.9. Margins have come down in Starbucks. Nick, if you pull up the McKinsey chart, this is a study of the grocery industry, the state of grocery in North America, 2023 by McKinsey. Accelerating pressures on profitability to cope with the pandemic's upheaval, grocers have had to dramatically increase CapEx, increase supplies. As a result, they've seen a significant impact on margins. Here's the margin profile pre-pandemic and today. Gross margin has declined by 2 points from 47.6 to 45.6. EBITDA margin has declined by 1.5 points. And now let's just go to the final chart, which is CPG companies, the companies that make food and sell it to consumers. As you can see, during the COVID era, the 3-year rolling TSR has declined since COVID across the board. So food companies are seeing food prices come down. So farmers are really suffering. Labor costs have tripled since the pandemic, but they're still having to sell products at the same price. CPG companies have lower margins and supermarkets have lower margins. So there is nowhere in the agri-food supply chain that we are seeing fundamentally price gouging or profit taking happening. What has happened is the cost of labor, the cost of moving stuff around, the cost of fuel, the cost of electricity, the cost of goods has all risen with inflation because of the increase in the money supply and federal spending and the stimulus associated with the Federal Reserve buying assets onto their balance sheet. So arguably, I would say that trying to step in and cap prices will reduce competition, and as a result, will reduce investment in improving productivity. And we have seen this countless times with every socialist experiment in human history has started with caps on food, and it has resulted in breadlines like you see in the image behind me today, as we can see in Soviet Russia. This is a mistake. It is a problem. It is anti-American. It is anti-free market. It is anti-innovation. It is anti-productivity. And ultimately, it's anti-liberty. And I cannot stand it. That's my rant.
So back to the interview now with Kaylee and Vivek, where they discuss the difference in private sector experience between the candidate on both sides and the VPs on both sides. This is a very important point.
Vivek, I saw a stunning graph in the New York Times today, and it is the fact that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, between the two of them, look at their private sector experience. You see private sector experience there in red. You see Trump, you see JD Vance. They have a ton of it. 0 is the private sector experience by Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. What does that say to you?
It says to me that they're not ready to run the government if they haven't run anything in the private sector either. The reality is their economic policies also reflect it, Kaylee. The fact of the matter is if Kamala Harris does as good of a job with the economy as she did with the southern border when she was in charge of that, then we are heading for a national catastrophe, a second Great Depression. And this isn't just bad for Republicans. This is something that's bad for all Americans, including the so-called communities of color that she claims she wants to serve. This is our path to victory. Is ultimately, do you want more money in your pocket? Do you actually want illegal mass migration into this country or not? End rampant crime and stay out of World War III, you have a choice. It's Donald Trump, even if you don't agree with him on everything. But I think the more we make this about policy, Kaylee, the more likely we are to succeed. And the less we make it about policy, I think the worse it's going to be for us. And so that's my warning to our side. If we need it, I think we're going to be successful.
Wise advice.
So when you think about it, this is a big problem when you have people who don't actually understand how the real world works. And when they're more interested in pandering than they are about implementing policies that will actually
pandering and slandering, slander.
Make a positive difference. Trump, Vance, and Vivek, for that matter, are all successful businessmen who understand economics deeply and can go into contentious situations and interviews and debate these matters, which Kamala and Tim Walz will not do. Kamala has absolutely no idea. And if you needed any more proof of just how much of an ignorant puppet she really is, then have a listen to her explaining how much she loves equity.
It has to be about a goal of saying everybody should end up in the same place. And since we didn't start in the same place, some folks might need more.
So, what did we learn last night again on Beneath Sheep's Clothing, which this crowd already knew, but sometimes I talk to people that are new, and sometimes I talk to people that are already watching that aren't generally here for the live streams. And this is one of those times, that when you hear the word equity, it has nothing to do with equality, and it's completely Marxist driven. It's a Marxist driven idea. So one thing you can hear in the words of a person that is influenced and working on behalf of the Marxist idea, right, is this word equity, and yet it's everywhere. This shows you how bad the problem is right now, and exactly what kind of fight that we're in right now. Because you hear it everywhere, and it's through our private industries, and it's a toxic virus that's spreading. This idea of equity, but it's just really the root of it is that Marxist ideology, and that's what's spewing through this woman's mouth right here.
Equitable distribution, giving resources based on.
If you say it and you act like you're smart about it, it's still bullshit. You can definitely manipulate people that are easily that are subjectable to that rhetoric.
Equity, understanding that we fight for equality, but we also need to fight for equity, understanding not everyone starts out at the same place. So there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests often everybody should get the same thing. Well, that often assumes everybody started out in the same place, as opposed to equity, which is everyone should end up in the same place. And if you then understand not everybody started out in the same place, you understand some people need more. So we all end up in the same.
That's called false logic right there.
Place, right?
Right. No, you're full of false logic. You're trying to sell something. You're in a sales pitch. You're trying to sell something you don't even really understand, but you know that you want it because that'll give you the power and the consent that you need.
We are proud of the fact that equity is one of our guiding principles.
You're proud of that, aren't you, comrade?
Proud of the fact that we understand equality is important, but not everybody starts out on the same base.
See, equality doesn't mean we all start on the same base, right? It means we all have equal opportunity, and which is proven to be the most effective way out there. That you have an equal opportunity, and it's up to you with your free will what you do with it. As long as you have evil like this woman and her ideas trying to pull you down and hand over your free will and your consent to authoritarian leaders like her who just want to drive it to the ground and use it as an excuse to create more of the same.
We see that people in our country are having an experience that is not equal.
Yeah, but that's a fallacy in itself. It's not supposed to be equal. Everybody's different. It's supposed to be individual.
So when we talk about the work we are doing here together, it is recognizing that.
No, the work you're doing here is manipulating people into believing something that's not true.
And being guided by this principle of what we must do in the spirit and in the interest of equity.
Maybe.
To put equity firmly at the center of our economic policy. But no, if you look at
put equity, equal outcome at the center of what you're doing. Right. It's not going to happen because you don't want equal outcome. You really don't. They really don't want equal outcome. They want an outcome for their supporters and people they grift into believing and follow. They grift into following them, and they want a different outcome for everybody else, which is a worse outcome. Right. So they don't even believe what they're saying here.
Yeah, the reality of who will benefit from certain policies. When you take into account that they're not starting.
Yeah, there she goes. Get benefit from certain policies. This idea that because there is a majority in this country, which there are majorities in every country, right? That the majority somehow is evil for being the majority.
Starting at the same place, and they're not starting on equal footing. It will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is the rhetoric of somebody who is a first-year college student campaigning for safe spaces for students of color and queer students, and not somebody who is campaigning to run the greatest empire to ever exist in human history. So in summary, I think that it's a positive thing for Trump. I think whenever Kamala Harris opens her mouth, it just gives the Republican side more ammunition. So let's hope for more public appearances from Kamala. If you haven't liked the video and subscribed to the channel, that would be appreciated. Right. And if you want to watch another one, right here. Next time, I'm Jake. This is Rattlesnake TV, keeping you armed and dangerous.
Yeah, good stuff right there. Good stuff. All right. So, the thing is that there's just people out there that just they've already been programmed to hate. They've already been programmed to hate Trump. The archetype is damaged beyond repair in their minds. So, they no matter what Kamala says, at this point in their life, they're done. They're wiped. They're useless, and they're just pawns or useful idiots for the corrupt establishment that will eventually imprison or eliminate them altogether. What we want to worry about is reaching younger people, younger generations, and start erasing the mind virus that they've implanted while we were not aware of what they were doing. I hope, if anything, the last few days have raised the urgency level amongst people here, but also anybody who may be new to the channel or watching on other platforms that I don't get to interact with, that you're understanding that, this is the fight, this is the war, this is the fight, the 5th generational war that we have to be involved in. If you want to defend your country, defend your future, defend your family, defend yourself, whatever it is, that you're fighting for, this is the fight to be in, to help pull people out of this mind control they're under. Mind control is the real fight, because these people are all under mind control. And where does the mind control come from? Well, we've discussed this all the time here, and it's in the streams itself, the ones that I list out when I go through examples, but also just, if you're subscribed and you check in, you're going to find something in every episode that I do that's going to help you better understand these conditions and so on. And as well, tomorrow night on Winning 2024, I'll be back with more July 13th stuff. We got that third shooter report that's finally in. We're going to know more about that. Some stuff that hasn't been unveiled yet, or has just been unveiled in the past few days. We're going to go through that. Also discussing more about the election 2024 and looking at the DNC and what kind of buffoonery is coming out of that. And also what kind of havoc and chaos is in the streets. We'll do a little bit of that at the end of the show tonight. We'll check in to see if anything has happened so far. And just see where we at. 54. Hey, Thomas, what's up? Let me guess, you're just getting ready to log off and shut it down. No, actually, not log off and shut it down, Thomas. We go to Rumble and X to do the reading part. So if you haven't been following Monday nights Unrig the Game, it's the kickoff show. So we just do it. We just kick off for a while here, and then we go do it. And by the way, if you guys will please go to Rumble, and the links are posted in the chat and in the description, and check in there. Rumble, it's summertime right now. It's very light. There's a lot going on. I could use your help with numbers over there for this evening to get this show pumped out into the algorithm, into the recommendations and Rumble, because we're getting ready to go over there and read. I want to make sure people know that we're live and that we're doing chapter 10 of Woke Inc. Tonight. Wokeness is like a religion. This has been an ongoing theme, and a perfect theme for this week, with the DNC is over there brainwashing and confirming the bias of so many useful idiot victims, yet dangerous individuals to our freedom and our future in this country. So if you guys will please join me and Rumble tonight, I would appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up when you're there, so I know that you were there, and get some chit chat going. This should be a great chapter tonight. We're going to go ahead and head off now. This is the end of the kickoff show. But thank you, each and every one of you, for coming by and hitting the like button, and here on the YouTube side, and being part of the kickoff show. You know, we do this for like an hour just to kind of just gather and talk. You know, expectations are like, okay, so whoever can make it to the kickoff show, or who wants to stop in and hear about what tonight's chapter is going to be about, or some of the other added, you know, bonus stuff that I add to these shows, so that we learn more and more about the topics and whatever else is going on in the world right now. Thank you so much for being here. Especially thanks to everybody on X. Got a great crowd on X tonight. Thank you guys so much for being there. But right now, YouTube, we're going to get on out of here. And so you get far more people getting the suggestions when it's a live stream. I found static view videos get less attention. Otherwise, unless you're garner your own word spreading. Yeah. Oh, look at this. 16 months. Dang, I'm dedicated. 16 months. Thank you for being a member for 16 months. Talking Trash and Truths. You rock. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to everyone who is a member, and everybody who's thinking about being a member. Just go ahead and do it. Join up. Join Solution Culture. Join the Winner Circle. Let's go. All right. So yeah, that's it. We're going to go ahead and get out of here now and head over to Rumble, and then we're going to start reading chapter 10 of Woke Inc. So I hope you guys will join us, and we will see you there later, YouTube.
Man, everyone's tensed up for a Rumble.